It's maybe the oldest play in basketball, but it is undoubtedly keeping Brad Stevens up at night. Why can't the Celtics guard the Miami Heat's pick and roll? What can Brad Stevens do going forward? Why did it give them so many problems in game two? I think diving into the film with me, you'll see it's a little harder maybe than you initially thought, but let's take a look at some of the clips. First of all, this is what you absolutely can't allow to happen. The hard part, though, is even though this looks like a pick and roll, it's really not. It ends up being just a two-man game where Bam just makes a handoff with none. So, here are a few things you could potentially do here. First of all, Grant Williams, in my opinion, has to have a foot in the paint. I know the Heat have great shooters out here, and that's what Boston's been really worried about is their threes. But I think they need to adjust because Bam is having way too easy of a time getting to the rim. So Grant Williams can have a foot in the paint, be ready to come in and take away the lob to Bam, and then Jaylen Brown has to play in between these two shooters right about here. So once the pass, if the pass comes out, let's say it comes to Hero, Jaylen Brown is going to X to him, and then Grant Williams will rotate to Dragic, called an X out. Again, that is how you could guard it. Also, Cantor probably right away just needs to keep back up, back up, back up, instead of just being up at all like that, because once you do that, you're done already. It's really, really hard for him from his position without any help on the backside, but if there was anything you could tell him, it's keep backing up, and again, I think some help needs to come in sooner from the weak side. Another look, Miami was running a lot of what's called short action on the pick and roll. So short action is actually pretty old school. It's when we used to have two non-shooting bigs on the floor, which kind of is what Miami does have here. So Jimmy's going to start basically on the left block and work his way underneath to the right block as the pick and roll happens. So what that theoretically does is make Kemba Walker have to make an impossible choice between either coming in to take away Bam and giving up the corner three, or staying with Crowder, and Bam could potentially get a layup. We actually don't see it really play out on this one because Marcus Smart does a good job just getting really aggressive with Dragic, so Dragic can't really come off the screen with aggression. But keep this in mind because we're going to come back to the short action a bunch in this video. What ends up happening here is Bam gets the ball and then goes into a dribble handoff with Crowder. Now, this is what absolutely can't happen, kind of again like the last clip. When Crowder turns the corner on this dribble handoff, Tice cannot step up. Once you do that, you're done. He needs, again, to keep backing up. What it's going to mean, Jay Crowder might have a wide open mid-range jumper, but you have to live with something. You literally cannot take away everything. So it's a little harder if Crowder had decided to pull up from three, but with Kemba pursuing him from behind, he's probably not going to be able to do that. What you need to do, though, is stay between Bam and the basket. Make sure Crowder doesn't get a layup, but if he wants to take this shot right here, you live with it. Instead, by stepping up like Tice does here, now Bam's behind him. And again, could Tatum potentially recognize this earlier with Jimmy down here in the short position and come over? Sure, and Smart would have to cover down on Jimmy Butler and help him out, but that does require a lot of work and recognition. We see the same concept here. That's much better. That's what Cantor needs to do. He does a much better job here on pretty much the same action of not stepping up to Crowder, staying back, trying to entice Crowder into taking this pull-up, which he doesn't take, and then that's where you really see how tough this is to guard because Bam is still so good at the floater that even though Cantor does a great job backing up, staying between him and the basket, again, you have to live with something. I'd maybe like Cantor to get a little better of a contest or a contest at all on that, but again, if you're living with any shot, a Bam 7-foot floater or so is probably one of the shots that Brad Stevens does have to live with, as hard as it is. Here we see Miami go to their kind of pistol 5 action, and again, Kemba does a great job to start the play, blowing up the pick and roll, but Miami's obviously never going to stop playing. They go into a step-up pick and roll. So now what needs to happen? Marcus Smart is what's called the low man. It's his responsibility to come in and get to Bam's roll. What makes his job, though, really hard is, honestly, it would be a lot easier if there was a traditional shooter just standing here in this corner, because then Smart could just come in to help and then know he's getting back out to the corner. The problem with Jimmy is Jimmy's so smart that he's not just going to stand in the corner, especially because he's not a great shooter. He is a very active cutter, especially backdoor cutter like right here. So even though Smart clearly sees Bam and thinks he has to come in and help, he's also seeing that Jimmy is back cutting from the corner and thinking that Dragic could try to hit him right about here for a dunk. So Smart tries to stay in between both, and then ultimately probably goes to Jimmy a second too early. Bam ends up getting a dunk. But again, this is really, really tough to guard because let's say even if Smart did his job and totally committed to Bam and took away his role, who's going to get to Butler? Because even if they hit Bam... If they hit Bam right here, Jimmy would be wide open and Bam would hit him. So again, I think another adjustment Brad needs to make is, as much as they're worried about the shooters, Crowder, Duncan, great three-point shooters, but you cannot face guard them like here. You can do that when they're trying to run a play for them, like when they hit Bam at the elbow and go into all their split action. Then you can try to play like this, denial, so on and so forth. When they go into pick and rolls, though, you need to get off him a little bit, be ready, be in the paint, be willing to come in and help, see if they'll make the skip pass all the way over, because you know they can make the pass to these guys for layups and dunks. Let's see if they can make, the point guards can make the skip pass over the top, and you can still fly at Duncan Robinson, at Crowder, get a good contest. But again, they need to at least take away layups and dunks first. Jaylen Brown, in my opinion, is playing too tight on Robinson there. This one just absolutely inexcusable. Andre Iguodala is just going to go off a step up. And again, if anybody would be the low man and responsible to come in, it'd be Tatum. But what's really maddening and bizarre is I don't know where he's going. He's walking up to half court. Tyler Hero is his man, and he started in the corner. He worked his way up a tiny bit, but then drifts back to the corner as any good player does when the ball is driven baseline. And Jason Tatum just completely leaves him, and Hero gets an open corner three. That can't happen, period. Here we see that short action again. Jimmy underneath. So what happens here? Again, they are too hugged up on Duncan Robinson on the weak side. Once again, if you see them hitting Bam, if you know it's a play for Duncan, sure, get into his body, try to not let him come off at all. If you see there's a pick and roll going on, again, this is the short action. Jaylen Brown has to at least have a foot in the paint. Otherwise, Tyler Hero, once again, we know he can throw this lob. He throws it really well. Let's see if he can make that pass cross court to Duncan Robinson. Short action again, this time with Hero as the ball handler. So again, this is the one I do think they need to bring Jaylen Brown in a little more, at least have a foot in the paint. But you do see another good example of how they can play it here, as Grant Williams kind of figured it out a little more as the game went on. Again, he can keep backing up. Why? Because, first of all, the ball's coming to this corner here where you can give a little bit of help, not too much. But then also, Marcus Smart is down here already. So if Tyler Hero really turns this corner and tries to get in this gap right here, Marcus Smart is there. So Grant Williams doesn't need to give all that much help on this pick and roll. And sure enough, as Tyler Hero tries to turn the corner, he makes a rookie mistake of leaving his feet, and Marcus Smart recognizes and takes the charge. That could be a good recipe for how they defend it. Again, though, the problems are never ending because when they took Tice off Bam, they still wanted to put Tice in the pick and roll, even if it was Jake Crowder setting. As you see, Crowder comes up. Boston's going to switch this one, so Dragic just pulls the ball back out a little further and then goes to his step back in the mid-range. He has so many solutions. He's so deadly. Again, spread pick and roll here. Kelly Olynyk setting, same type concept. They need to at least take away Dragic's left-hand drives, try to force him to go right a little bit better, and obviously take away the rim. You can't let him beat you there and get those touch finishes off the glass. Another adjustment Miami made, to Spoelstra's credit, they started again, seeing that they were trying really hard to force Dragic right on the high pick and roll, so he brought up what we call like a horns pinch action or a scrum pick and roll with two guys up here trying to just make sure they pick off Wanamaker here. So Dragic on this one, even though he doesn't really use the screen all that well, he's still able to get off to his left hand. And again, they continue to let him get downhill going left. Tatum could be in the paint a little more off of the non-shooting Jimmy from the corner, but Dragic is just so good, so tough. You see the scrum pick and roll again, as this was again another way for Dragic to get left without even really using the screen. Ends up just looking like horns. This is more how you want to play it. Again, Tatum coming in off of Jimmy, not a great shooter on the weak side. Long pass, airtime on the pass, you're able to have time to close out. Miami ends up not scoring. Scrum pick and roll again here with Jimmy handling this time. And he's going to ultimately target Tice in what turns into basically another short-looking type pick and roll. And look again how tough this is, because Kemba recognizes and tries to tell Smart, go help, you're right there. Go help on Bam. And Smart's in there. But again, Bam's able to get his floater off. Once again, I do think next game we'll see maybe Brad tell Kemba, you got to get off a little bit more. You got to come in, be willing to help in here in the paint instead of being so worried about Duncan Robinson. But once again, it's one of those situations where no matter what you do, the Miami Heat seem to have a counter for it. Bam's a great player. Dragic is a great player. Jimmy Butler's a great player. All super high IQs. Boston, definitely a headache. We'll see what Brad Stevens decides to do in Game 3. Thanks for watching. Make sure you thumb up. Make sure you check out the other Heat video I dropped today. A lot more coming soon.